You have already stepped beyond the familiar threshold, though your conscious mind may not yet recall the moment. Welcome to the Charon Files. The stories you are about to hear are testimonies from living witnesses of what moves beyond understanding, of what refuses to be explained. Each of them stood at the edge of what is known and looked into what lies beyond it. My name is Charon, Ferryman of the Dead, the one who waits at that edge. What follows is what they brought back. May they prepare you for your own future encounters. My archive of human experiences continues to yield its patterns, not merely of external entities encountered, but of the intricate discrepancies within how reality itself is perceived. These are not merely individual testimonies. They are echoes, subtle yet unsettling, from a larger, unseen current. They describe moments where the linear flow of existence falters, where the mind perceives beyond the body, or where the very fabric of memory seems to fray, leaving an account suspended, incomplete. Such instances suggest that the boundaries we assume are fixed, between wakefulness and dream, between life and its cessation, between a moment and its continuation, are far more porous than you might ever comprehend. They are brief glimpses into the fluid nature of your perceived world, moments when the echo of something else brushes against your own. Charles, in Managua, Nicaragua, recounts a walk through the rainforest, a childhood memory that seems to pause, leaving its conclusion unspoken, as if the moment itself remained suspended.
This all occurred when I was 6 years old. This occurred in Managua, Nicaragua. My grandmother in Nicaragua lives in a finca, which is basically like a huge farm. She grows coffee and other plants, has cattle, etc. If you don't have a Jeep or some sort of off-road vehicle, it's really tough, if not impossible, to make it up to her place, as it's surrounded by thick rainforest. Most people use horses or motorcycles on the trail up to her finca. Typically, we had a Jeep that we would be able to drive all the way up there, but it was getting repaired, I think, or someone else was using it, and we had to take a cab there to visit. It was around midday, and the cab dropped us off where the paved road ended. It was about a 1.5 mile walk to my grandma's finca from there that we'd walked plenty of times in the past. There were homes along the trail, but they were far and few between. I was with my parents and little sister, 2 years younger, at the time. Nothing eventful really happened. It was a bright summer Nicaragua day. Pretty hot, but the forest shade helped. I remember playing with one of my favorite toys. It was the Green Ranger, that you could push a button and his head would switch from his normal head to his helmet. Anyway, I was playing with it as we walked along the trail. We then arrived to a small stream. My parents are easily able to jump over it and keep walking. They look behind them and I can see them watch me try to make the jump, smiling at me. I do make the jump, but drop my toy in the process, and it gets picked up by the stream, so I immediately start following. After it, I can hear my parents yelling for me, but I'm too focused on catching my toy. This next bit I still remember vividly to this day. All of a sudden, I'm like in a field. The one thing I notice is that it's eerily quiet. I have to reiterate that this is a Central American forest. It is never quiet. There are always hundreds of birds, monkeys, and other small animals everywhere. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. Then I hear something weird like chirping, and I see small, tiny orbs in the tall grass. I'm not afraid of them. More like intrigued. They're amongst the grass like the way you would see an animal's eyes, but they're weightless and floating. I start walking towards them, but then I get scared and run away towards the forest. I remember getting sleepy as I fell against a tree trunk. The next bit I won't go into much detail on, as it's just things my parents have told me. In Nicaragua, my dad's side of the family is pretty important, with big ties to the government, senators, judges, military, etc. And my dad reached out to his brother, who is the chief of police, and his brother-in-law, who is a general. They had a massive search for me, using police and military assets, about 1,000 people total combing the jungle, dogs, helicopters, the works. They actually found a few bodies in the process. They had stab or gunshot wounds. I was missing for 2 days, and the next thing I remember is waking up in the back of a bus, the bus driver waking me up and asking if I was okay. I immediately start crying and asking for my mom. My mom had me memorize our home number, so they call, and I get picked up. Police investigate thinking it may have been a kidnapping attempt. They think once they found out who was kidnapped, they put me in the bus. I tell them my story, and a few of them think duendes took me. Duendes is something a lot of the people in Nicaragua believe in, especially people out in the fields. It's less believed in the major cities. They're basically described like small people who kidnap children, kill livestock, or ruin crops. Basically, mischievous little things. A telltale sign of them being present is seeing small floating lights in trees or amongst tall grass. People say it's their lanterns that they carry. Some of my older cousins kid around that it was the Llorona, who took me but then got tired of me and dumped me on a bus, laughing out loud. Anyway, that's my story.
From Kenai, Alaska, Lucas details the myriad sensations of sleep paralysis, a state where the mind wakes to perceive a reality distinct from the body's slumber.
I'm going to list the various effects and some helpful information about sleep paralysis. This is a list of potential symptoms. If you only experience two or experience all, you are most likely experiencing sleep paralysis. Seeing and hearing things are far more rare than not. However, it's also boring, hence why no one shares their story when not a lot happened. The obvious symptom is paralysis, a feeling of being unable to move, like your limbs weigh 1,000,000 pounds, like you're being held down, like you're moving but nothing is happening, or pain in limbs you try to move. This is where we get the name. The explanation is simple. Your whole body is asleep, except for your brain. Other symptoms include chest pressure, or a feeling of being unable to breathe. While under the effects of a sleep paralysis episode, the nerves in your chest are dulled, as they are under the impression you're asleep. You are in fact still breathing. Hallucinations are also common. Your brain is in dream mode. You're having open-eyed dreams. Sounds like screaming, talking, or music can occur. Again, this is because your dreams are active while awake. You might experience feelings of being touched, hurt, bitten, scratched, flying, falling, or shaking. Your nerves are all asleep. Sometimes they're in the process of waking up and can cause interesting feelings as they do. Alternatively, your body may be simulating what your brain is dreaming about, as we normally experience these while asleep. Panic, anxiety, and terror are 100% natural responses to being trapped. You might feel like time won't pass or time is stuck, as you have no real way of perceiving time in this state. A racing heart is also due to anxiety. Intense or vivid nightmares or dreams can occur before or after. The nightmare would be what woke you up into the sleep paralysis, and if it comes after, it's because your anxiety is through the roof. You might feel alone, but sleep paralysis is not as rare as you think. Lots of people never even know it happened as they attribute it to a weird dream. You're not alone. There are lots of us out here. People report buzzing, humming, or grinding type noises preceding an episode. Also, spiraling, dizzy, or sickly feelings can occur before, during, or after episodes. Someone mentioned feeling a presence. To be clear, this is almost as rare as actually seeing something. It does happen, however, and can be an eerie feeling. Again, you're having an anxiety attack. Our brains try to explain why we are panicking by blaming something. So it manifests a feeling of someone being out to get you, someone there to harm you, or maybe just someone in the room. Either way, nothing to be too scared of. There's a slew of other things that can happen, but generally, you can identify sleep paralysis with 3 questions. Am I in my bed? Am I paralyzed? Am I unable to talk? If the answer to these questions are yes, then it's textbook sleep paralysis. Also remember that people are wildly different, and that your sleep paralysis may be different but follow the same patterns as what you read. That's normal. We all have differently wired brains, and no 2 cases will be exactly alike. I have experienced sleep paralysis for the past 16 years. If anyone needs any advice or has any questions, I'll try my best to answer. Sleep paralysis doesn't have to be as scary as it feels.
Richard in London describes a near-death experience, witnessing his physical body from a detached perspective while simultaneously existing in another, undefined state.
I had a near-death experience about 17 years ago and have only shared the full thing with a few people. I used to have a strange, cold-triggered allergic reaction, which, on this occasion, ended in anaphylaxis. I didn't understand it well at the time. I was cycling up a hill in South London with 48 cans of beer in my backpack, heading to watch a rugby match. Take a breather thinking I was just unfit. That's when my heart stopped. I fell backwards. But I didn't go with my body. I stayed at roughly head height, floating, watching everything below me. I watched a young woman come out of an estate agent's office. She was on the phone to the ambulance. She knelt down and took my pulse. Told them on the phone there was no pulse. She put me in the recovery position. She took the keys off my belt loop, used them to chain up my bike so it wouldn't get stolen, this was London, and put the keys back. She stayed with me until the ambulance arrived, until I was stretchered away and defibrillated. I watched all of it from outside my body. While I was watching what was happening on the street, I was also somewhere else at the same time. The best way I can describe it, imagine the physical universe is above a piece of paper laid flat, and a drawing pin is pushed up through it from underneath. The pinhead, sitting just above the paper, got pulled down into basically nothingness. Pulled out of the physical into a kind of nothingness below it. Up and down don't make sense to the sensation, but is the only way to describe it. Still aware of above, but in this other space simultaneously. I wasn't alone there. I couldn't see them in any normal sense, but I was aware of other beings present, and there was a flood of communication. Telepathic, not in words, in concepts. It was hard to describe because I'm trying to put something not of this place into the language of this place. What was communicated was calming, gentle, not urgent. The concepts that came through were things like, your body might be dying. That's okay. If it does die, you'll get a different adventure to start. If it doesn't die, you'll be just fine. And everything is okay. There was no fear there. The beings around me weren't trying to convince me of anything or pull me anywhere. They were just present, and they were kind, and they wanted me to know I was safe whichever way it went. I survived. When I was discharged, I walked back to where it happened to collect my bike, which was still there, chained up exactly as she'd left it. I bought a box of chocolates and went into the estate agent's office to thank the woman who'd helped me. She freaked out when I walked in. She kept saying, "How could you know? How could you know?" Because I knew details I shouldn't have known. My eyes were closed and I had no pulse the entire time she was there and helping me. The chaining of the bike. The keys. Who she was or where she came from to save my life. Things I had no way of knowing if I'd been unconscious on the pavement the whole time. I knew because I'd watched her do it. What it left me with. I don't push this experience on anyone. I rarely talk about it, but it changed what I think is possible. And it took fear of death off the table for me in a way I couldn't have arrived at any other way. The beings in that space were patient and loving and not in a hurry. Wherever they were, it felt like home in a way. I don't have a tidy theological framework that fully accounts for it. I grew up Christian, but I've never thought what happened to me maps cleanly onto a single tradition's version of the afterlife. It was bigger and stranger and more peaceful than any of the descriptions I'd been given before it happened.
These accounts, each a testament, reveal the tenuous grasp humanity holds on the singular objective reality it believes to inhabit, a perception ever prone to shift, to fracture, to yield to the unseen currents. The names of the witnesses have been changed to maintain anonymity. If what you have heard tonight mirrors something you have experienced, leave your story in a comment below and we will include it in a future episode. Don't forget to subscribe. You wouldn't want to miss the next episode of the Charon Files.